The story begins with a boy named Tsubasa looking out of the car window and seeing heavy snowfall. He asks the driver to drop him off as he's close to his destination. While taking in the scenery, he experiences a feeling of peace and freedom. There are no people or cars around, which is quite different from bustling Tokyo. However, the cold, dense air in Hokkaido makes him very uncomfortable. He reflects on his father's decision to move there at this time of year, realizing it might not have been the best choice. To make matters worse, he notices that his cell phone's battery is running low. Suddenly, he encounters a blonde girl on his path. Tsubasa thinks she looks like a Jaru because she is dressed short for winter. The girl looks at him, and he shows her a map, asking for directions to her destination. After she provides directions, Tsubasa decides to continue walking. However, the girl stops him and inquires if he plans to walk there. He replies affirmatively, saying he'll go on foot. She informs him that it will take him 3 hours to reach his destination, which surprises him. He had no idea it would take so long to get to a nearby district. The girl explains that the Kitami region is quite large. As he regains his composure, Tsubasa regrets taking the taxi so early, thinking he could have walked a shorter distance. Tsubasa lifts his head and decides he'll take another taxi. However, the girl tells him that taxis don't go to that area. He insists and asks if he can call a taxi to pick him up. She informs him that if he's lucky, a taxi might arrive in about 30 minutes. Tsubasa reluctantly accepts that he's in a bit of a predicament. But then, the girl kindly invites him to wait for the bus with her. She explains that the bus will arrive in just 5 minutes and will also stop at his destination. Hearing this, he becomes excited and thanks her for saving him from waiting for 30 minutes. Curious about his background, she asks where he's from. Tsubasa explains that he recently moved from Tokyo. Upon hearing this, she's amazed and wonders why he moved to Kitami from Tokyo so suddenly. He tells her it was because of family reasons. She comments that compared to Tokyo, Kitami is a rather ordinary place. She speculates that he might consider the locals tacky. However, Tsubasa disagrees and says he actually finds peace in Kitami. Her words remind him of when he was bullied, often being called tacky and unpopular. Even though he lived in Tokyo, he still felt out of place in the eyes of many. Now, in a new place, he's relieved that people haven't labeled him as tacky yet. The girl is curious to learn more about him and asks about his age. He reveals that he's 16, which excites her as they are the same age. She inquires about his school, and he mentions he'll be studying at Hokkaido. This excites her even more because she'll also be attending the same school. She takes him by the arm, making him slightly embarrassed, but he lets her continue due to the cold weather. She asks him to relax and speak in a less formal way. When she sneezes, he shows concern and offers her a tissue. Despite the cold, Tsubasa appears excited, as he's never had this much contact with a girl during his time in Tokyo. He begins to wonder if all the girls in Hokkaido are as friendly as her. While on the bus, she keeps calling him, but he doesn't answer. In response, she playfully puts snow inside his shirt, causing him to complain about the cold. In the midst of this awkward situation, he accidentally blurts out that she's very pretty, making her blush with embarrassment. As her bus arrives, she asks for his name, and he tells her he's Shiki Tsubasa. She introduces herself as Fuyuki Minami and leaves, saying she'll see him at school later. Tsubasa celebrates, feeling happy about his encounter in Hokkaido. His father sends a message asking if he has arrived yet, prompting him to remember that he should have taken the bus with Minami. As he thinks about Minami, she wishes they could end up in the same class. The next day, Tsubasa goes to his new class and introduces himself as Shiki Tsubasa. He informs his new classmates that he just moved there from Tokyo the day before. After the introduction, the teacher instructs him to take a seat in the row next to the corridor. As he scans the classroom, he doesn't see Minami and assumes she must be in a different class, which disappoints him. However, Tsubasa tries to convince himself that he doesn't have any romantic feelings for her. He believes that he prefers serious, dark-haired girls and attributes his surprise at meeting Minami to the fact that she is unlike anyone he has met before. But to his surprise, Minami enters the room while he's talking about her. When she spots him, she immediately approaches him, causing the teacher to scold him for being late. Tsubasa is taken aback, as he didn't expect such cliché movie-like situations to happen to him. During the class, Minami compliments him on his beautiful name. Adding to his confusion, she addresses him by his first name, and he clarifies that only his family and friends call him Tsubasa. The class continues, and Tsubasa starts to feel extremely cold, wondering how anyone can concentrate in such chilly conditions. He worries about catching a cold. Noticing his discomfort, Minami lends him an extra jacket to help him keep warm. Tsubasa notices that the jacket still carries her warmth, and a pleasant scent, making him feel as though he's receiving a comforting hug from her. However, he decides to redirect his thoughts, fearing that his hormones might distract him from focusing on his studies. When the class finally ends, Tsubasa expresses his gratitude to Minami for the jacket and offers to wash it for her. However, Minami explains that she was just enjoying the combined scent of both of them on the jacket and suggests that he could find another way to thank her. She asks Tsubasa to accompany her when she leaves school that day since she won't have anyone else to walk with. Despite having met just the day before, she already considers him a close friend. Tsubasa agrees and asks her where she lives. Minami informs him that she will take a train home, so he only needs to walk with her to the station. During their walk, she curiously inquires if he has a girlfriend, and he responds that he is currently single. Minami finds it amusing that he emphasized his relationship status and asks him about his favorite spots for dates in Tokyo. Tsubasa admits that he has never been on a date before and shares that he prefers places where you can eat and go for a walk. He asks Minami about her favorite places for walks in Kitami, and she explains that they tend to stay home during the cold winter. Tsubasa realizes that their conversation has become quite direct and attempts to clear his impure thoughts. Upon reaching her destination, he bids her farewell. However, before parting ways, Minami invites him to her house the next day, as there won't be any classes. She expresses her curiosity about Tokyo and her desire to learn more from him. Although hesitant, Tsubasa eventually agrees to visit her house, feeling that their relationship is progressing positively. They exchange contact information, and Tsubasa returns home. The following day, Tsubasa stands in front of Minami's house, feeling a bit apprehensive about the situation. It marks his first time visiting a girl's house, and he remembers that he must keep it a secret from his family to avoid getting into trouble. He finally decides to go in and calls out to her. Minami welcomes him inside, mentioning that her parents aren't at home. She leads him to the living room, and he notices the warmth from the floor heating. She explains that her bedroom is colder due to a small heater, which puts Tsubasa at ease, as he believes they won't engage in anything inappropriate in the living room. However, Minami starts teasing him with playful touches and asks what they should do next. Tsubasa hesitates but eventually suggests watching a movie he brought from home. As Minami starts playing the movie, an awkward and freaky scene unfolds, making Tsubasa feel tense. During the movie, she playfully touches him with her foot, and when he looks at her, he discovers that she has fallen asleep. Tsubasa considers her careless for sleeping next to a stranger. After a while, she finally wakes up, and Tsubasa prepares to leave, leaving the DVD with her to finish watching. As he heads home, she chases after him and apologizes for falling asleep during the movie. Tsubasa ignores the apology and expresses concern that she might catch a cold in her current clothing due to the cold weather. In response, she takes his hand and suggests buying him something to eat as a way to make amends for what happened. Before her class the next day, Fayuki gets busy making a snowman. Seeing that it turns out really well, she decides to take a photo with it and share the moment on social media. Her smile in the picture is clear and bright. On her way to class, she spots Tsubasa reading a poster and quietly approaches him. Whispering in his ear, she asks what he's looking at, making Tsubasa's heart race. Fayuki notices he's looking at a poster about an upcoming cultural festival. She asks if he's interested, and Tsubasa, intrigued by the event being this weekend, thinks it might be worth a visit. Hearing his response, Fayuki smiles and suggests they could go together. Tsubasa is taken aback. Going to a festival with a girl seems like a date to him. Later, at Fayuki's house during dinner with her family, they notice her father hasn't come home yet. Her mother mentions that her dad has the next day off, proposing a family walk. Fayuki and her sibling agree, but she has to decline later because she plans to meet a friend at the winter festival. This news disappoints her little sister. Her mother remembers how Fayuki always loved festivals, especially in her elementary school day. When her father finally arrives, Fayuki sits there, lost in thought, staring at an image of the Kitami Winter Festival. The following day, while braving the cold, Tsubasa recalls Fayuki's message from the previous day. She had asked him to meet her at 11 near the station. The idea of a date with her seems unbelievable to him. Tsubasa can't help but notice the cute emoji in Fayuki's message. He looks at a photo she sent of herself next to the snowman, looking pretty, which excites him to the point of being overwhelmed. He tries to calm down, thinking he needs to stay composed to get through the date. Tsubasa convinces himself that Fayuki invited him just because she's kind and noticed he doesn't have many friends. But his attempt to keep things casual falls apart when she finally arrives. Tsubasa nearly loses it when he sees how stunning Fayuki looks. He's struck by the intensity of his feelings, especially since her outfit is more covered up than usual, which somehow makes her even more appealing to him. Fayuki notices his reaction and asks if he thinks she looks beautiful. Tsubasa, after calming down a bit, agrees she is beautiful, but his response comes off as a bit distant. Fayuki feels like she might have pressured him into saying it. To change the subject, Tsubasa asks about her childhood memories of the festival. He's excited to see the ice statues and other unique things in Hokkaido. Fayuki, seeing his enthusiasm, shyly tells him not to get too worked up, but Tsubasa doesn't really hear her and just keeps going. When they finally get to the lively festival, Tsubasa is amazed and excitedly comments on how incredible it is, even though Fayuki starts to say something less enthusiastic. Seeing a statue, Fayuki mentions how it looked bigger to her as a child. Then, Tsubasa wants to take a photo of the sculpture, but Fayuki jumps in, pulling him into a selfie. Tsubasa is caught off guard by how nice she smells, and he makes a silly face in the photo, leaving him embarrassed when Fayuki sees it. While Tsubasa is panicking about the photo, Fayuki smells something delicious and suggests they get food. Tsubasa picks a breaded hot dog, even adding sugar to it, while Fayuki opts for yakitori. When he comes back, Fayuki wants to try his hot dog. As she takes a big bite, Tsubasa feels a strange thrill and starts to think of her bite as somewhat improper. He's also concerned about the indirect kiss that might happen if he eats from the same spot she bit from. Tsubasa, trying to act cool, forces himself to take a bite of his food. But when he does, he notices Fayuki watching him with a red face and a teasing look. He asks what's up, and she playfully tells him he's too easy to read. They continue their date, enjoying a fun and almost romantic atmosphere. They sit down to drink amazake, a traditional sweet drink. Tsubasa is amazed by the snow and the ambience, which makes Fayuki laugh. He then gets serious, mentioning that he's only ever lived in Tokyo and has never experienced anything like Hokkaido's beauty. It's still Japan, but feels completely different to him. He thanks Fayuki for the day, and she blushes, touched by his words. She admits she was worried he wouldn't enjoy the festival, but being with Tsubasa makes her appreciate her city more. His happiness makes her happy, and she thanks him for coming with her. As Fayuki talks about her love for her city, she suddenly loses her balance. Tsubasa quickly catches her, preventing her from falling. They end up face to face, close and breathless, leaving both of them embarrassed. When they stand up, Fayuki thanks him in her local dialect. Later, Tsubasa asks if they can go out like this again, and Fayuki seizes the chance to tease him, asking if he really wants to spend more time with her. She then mentions her wish to visit the Sapporo festival someday, hinting at another outing together. At school during lunch, Fayuki surprises Tsubasa by bringing him some noodles. She noticed his excitement for trying new things at the festival and wanted to introduce him to more of Hokkaido's culture. Tsubasa becomes shy when he realizes she's been paying attention to his reactions. Fayuki then shows him how to prepare the noodles with hot water from her Stanley bottle. After waiting the necessary time, Tsubasa is impressed by how practical the meal is. Fayuki points out a clever use for the leftover Chinese soup broth from the cup noodles, suggesting he can make soup with it. She offers him the dish, which is full but not exactly nutritious. Tsubasa is struck by the aroma and look of the noodles. Fayuki feeds him a bite with chopsticks, and he enjoys the taste, commenting on the noodles' quality. Fayuki playfully says that this meal makes up for her antics at the festival. Tsubasa blushes at the memory, but denies he's flustered. Changing the subject, Fayuki asks to see his lunchbox, and he shows her a normal bento, which excites her, wondering if it's a special dish. She even asks to take a photo of it, surprising Tsubasa with her enthusiasm, but he offers her a taste anyway. When Fayuki tries the meat, she describes it as beautiful and is amazed by its flavor and tenderness, jokingly considering marrying Tsubasa's grandmother to enjoy such delicious food forever. After they finish eating, Tsubasa expresses his amazement, mentioning that this was his first time eating cup noodles. Fayuki is surprised and starts to think Tsubasa must be a pampered rich boy from Tokyo because of his unfamiliarity with such common experiences. However, Tsubasa corrects her, insisting that his family isn't wealthy. Fayuki, curious about his life, suggests visiting his house. Tsubasa finds her request odd but agrees. He's a bit anxious because his grandmother is at home. At his house, Fayuki's playful attitude leads them to an igloo-like structure left by children. She pulls him inside the cramped space, teasing him with ambiguous comments about it being his first time and how warm it is inside. Tsubasa finds the situation uncomfortable and tight, and he tries to leave, but Fayuki insists they stay a bit longer in the confined space. Her movements and sounds make the situation seem suggestive. Just as Tsubasa is overwhelmed by the closeness and the implications, they hear someone calling for him. It's his grandmother, who asks what they were doing in the igloo, hinting that she heard some questionable noises. Tsubasa panics, realizing he needs to come up with a quick explanation for their innocent but seemingly compromising situation. During a playful moment, Fayuki teases Tsubasa about being too hasty during their first intimate moment together in the igloo. She jokes that he should have savored it more, leading to an awkward but humorous break in their conversation. When Fayuki meets Tsubasa's grandmother, she introduces herself and mentions enjoying some of his lunch, which initially doesn't sit well with the grandmother. However, Fayuki's compliment about the tasty food softens her a bit. The grandmother inquires about Fayuki's relationship with her grandson. Tsubasa, a bit anxious, quickly says they're just classmates, to which Fayuki reluctantly agrees. As snow begins to fall, Fayuki decides it's time to leave, noting that she and Tsubasa have more to do. Tsubasa, feeling he's messed up by not being more assertive with his grandmother, worries about the future of his life in Hokkaido. Fayuki then reappears, concerned about Tsubasa's grandmother using an umbrella in the snow. She advises against it, explaining the importance of having free hands in case of a slip and suggesting better ways to deal with the snow, like avoiding thin ice. Fayuki then offers to show a safer path and carries the grandmother's bag, telling her to take better care of herself. Tsubasa offers to carry the bag, but Fayuki hands it over with a pout, still teasing Tsubasa about being just classmates. Tsubasa explains his situation with his grandmother and whispers to Fayuki that she is a very important friend, leading to more playful teasing from her. Upon arriving at his house, Fayuki is impressed by its size. The grandmother invites her in to thank her for her help. Inside, the grandmother reflects on her age, deciding to trust Tsubasa's choice in friends, believing Fayuki must be a good girl. However, Fayuki starts taking photos of everything in the house, playfully mocking Tsubasa for being rich, which changes the grandmother's opinion again. But seeing her grandson happy with Fayuki, she decides to give Fayuki a chance. Back at school, they are arranging pairs for a ski class. Tsubasa finds out he's paired with Akino and will be skiing behind Fayuki, setting the stage for further developments in their school life and relationship. This brings an end to our episode. If you enjoyed it, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel for next episode. A few days from now, Tsubasa and Minami are taking the school bus for a whole day of skiing class, which is a typical thing to do in Hokkaido. Minami is super thrilled about it since she's been skiing since she was little, but Tsubasa feels nervous because he's never skied before. Minami teases Tsubasa for his fear of skiing, mentioning that almost everyone in Hokkaido skis. Tsubasa then shares that in Tokyo, where he's from, they hardly get enough snow to ski. Suddenly, he notices Minami trying to talk to a girl named Akino Sayuri sitting nearby. Minami asks Sayuri if she's looking forward to skiing, but Sayuri doesn't respond, which makes Minami feel down. Tsubasa thinks it's odd because Minami usually gets along with everyone, and he wonders if something happened between her and Sayuri. He checks if Minami is okay, and she shares her wish to be friends with Sayuri, believing they'd get along well. Minami says there's been no argument between them, she just really likes Sayuri and doesn't get why she's always ignored. Tsubasa admires Minami's persistence in wanting to be friends with Sayuri, and Minami goes on about how much she admires everything about Sayuri. As they talk, Tsubasa starts to see Sayuri in a new light, realizing he might feel the same admiration. Once they reach the ski resort, their class is split into groups from A to C, based on how well they can ski, and each group gets a teacher to guide them. In their class, Tsubasa and Sayuri were the only ones who didn't know how to ski, so their teacher decided they should practice together on level ground. Meanwhile, the rest of their classmates took the cable car to ski down the slopes. The teacher, responsible for the rest of the class, reminded Tsubasa and Sayuri to be cautious since he couldn't watch over them directly. Seeing this as a chance to chat with Sayuri and perhaps help smooth over her relationship with Minami, Tsubasa attempted to strike up a conversation. Sayuri, however, wasn't interested and put on her headphones, so Tsubasa backed off, respecting her space. Sayuri then began to ski, and Tsubasa followed, finding it somewhat easier once he got the hang of shifting his weight from one leg to the other. Not long after, Sayuri took a tumble. Tsubasa rushed over to offer assistance, but she quickly got back on her feet, wondering aloud why she was even bothering to learn skiing. Just then, Minami showed up, showcasing her skiing skills with various tricks, which amazed Tsubasa. However, the teacher wasn't pleased with Minami's daring moves and scolded her. During this, Sayuri inquired if Tsubasa and Minami were an item, noting their interaction on the bus and in class. Tsubasa, feeling a bit flustered, clarified that they were merely friends. Sayuri tells Tsubasa that Minami is exactly the kind of popular girl everyone loves. Fun, loves parties, and very friendly. All the things she feels she's not. After sharing her thoughts, Sayuri goes back to skiing. Meanwhile, Minami is busy helping other skiers at the resort, showing them how to properly ski down the slope. Eventually, their teacher checks in on Tsubasa and Sayuri, apologizing for not being around earlier as he was busy with the rest of the class. He mentions that most students have already taken their lunch break, and he feels bad for not letting them know sooner. So, it's time for Tsubasa and Sayuri to take a break too. But since everyone else had already eaten, Tsubasa decides to eat at the resort instead of the bus to avoid being alone with Sayuri. At the resort, Tsubasa realizes he forgot his chopsticks on the bus. When he goes back to get them, he accidentally walks in on Sayuri changing her shirt. Embarrassed, he quickly looks away. Both of them don't know what to say for a moment. Tsubasa figures Sayuri thought it was safe to change on the bus since it was empty. He apologizes for walking in on her and assures her he won't tell anyone about it. He just wanted to grab his chopsticks from his bag. Tsubasa offers to leave and come back later, respecting her privacy. But just as he's about to leave, Sayuri stops him. Despite the awkwardness, she insists she wants to explain. They end up having lunch together on the bus, but the silence makes Tsubasa feel uneasy around her. After sipping her drink, Sayuri starts to share her feelings. She reveals she sweats a lot, which embarrasses her so much that she avoided sports and ended up falling behind in all physical activity. This situation caused her to lose confidence and gradually isolate herself from others. Despite feeling nervous, especially after Tsubasa saw her trying to manage her sweat, she tries to reach out, like on that day. Tsubasa says sorry for the awkward situation, but Sayuri blames herself for being careless. Tsubasa wonders why Sayuri felt comfortable sharing such a personal issue with him, a newcomer. Sayuri explains it's because they don't know each other well, making Tsubasa a safe person to talk to without the fear of judgment or gossip. Sayuri adds that they are somewhat in the same boat. She has no friends, and Tsubasa, being new, doesn't know anyone well yet. Tsubasa admits it's tough being the new guy but appreciates the opportunity to be there for Sayuri. Suddenly, they hear a noise from Sayuri's backpack, leading to another shared moment between them. Tsubasa suggests Sayuri check her backpack after hearing a noise, thinking it's her phone. Sayuri decides to be open about it and shows that the sound was from her fighting game getting an update. Tsubasa admits he's not much of a gamer, which surprises Sayuri because the game includes many well-known characters. She encourages him to give it a try, but Tsubasa is clueless about how to play. Sayuri teaches him, amused by his confusion. Her enthusiasm about the game brings her closer to Tsubasa, making him a bit uneasy. Realizing this, Sayuri apologizes for her excitement. She shares that she tries to make friends but feels her intense nature often pushes people away, so she finds solace in gaming, something she believes she's good at. Tsubasa compliments Sayuri, telling her she's truly one of a kind, both in her personality and looks, which makes Sayuri blush. He then asks her to share more about gaming so they can enjoy it together. Sayuri agrees, encouraging him to give it a shot. Watching Tsubasa play and win his first match, he gets excited about his achievement, only for Sayuri to gently let him know it was against the easiest opponent in the game. This doesn't dampen Tsubasa's spirits, though he soon realizes their lunch break is over and it's time to return to skiing. Back on the slopes, Sayuri prefers to take it easy, but Tsubasa is eager to ski properly, believing that trying is the key to success, much like in gaming. They decide to take the cable car up the mountain to try an easy slope. Minami notices them together and worries a bit, wondering how they'll manage. Sayuri, feeling concerned, questions Tsubasa's sudden decision to ski, especially since their teacher had advised them to be cautious. Tsubasa shares that since moving to Hokkaido, he's been keen on trying new things and reassures her that they're heading to a beginner's slope, having already sought advice from the teacher on skiing safely. Sayuri is impressed when Tsubasa shares his enthusiasm for trying new things, mentioning Minami as his inspiration. He explains how Minami, the first friend he made after moving, introduced him to different places and foods. Sayuri then teases Tsubasa, suggesting he likes Minami because of how fondly he talks about her. Tsubasa quickly denies it, saying they're just friends, but Sayuri believes his denial actually proves she's right. She admits that, although Minami is well-liked, she's unsure how to interact with her due to her own unpopularity, leading her to avoid Minami. Tsubasa wants to assure Sayuri that Minami simply wants to be friends. However, their conversation is cut short as they arrive at the beginner's slope. Exiting the cable car, Tsubasa challenges Sayuri. If he can ski down without falling, she must consider becoming friends with Minami. Sayuri is amused by Tsubasa's determination, not just for Minami's sake but because he also wants to be friends with her. Agreeing to his condition, they start skiing down the mountain. Tsubasa remembers the skiing tips from the teacher, and is pleased when they both manage to ski smoothly. As they approach the end, Tsubasa realizes he's forgotten to explain how to stop to Sayuri. Trying to warn her, he shouts instructions, but she can't hear him. Preparing himself, Tsubasa gets ready to catch her, hoping to prevent a fall. Luckily, Minami shows up just in time to teach Sayuri how to fall without hurting herself. She demonstrates a safe fall, and they both land softly in the snow. Tsubasa breathes a sigh of relief seeing them unharmed, but then gets in trouble with the teacher for letting them ski without official permission. Admitting it was his idea, Tsubasa faces the consequences for putting both of them at risk. After speaking with the teacher, Sayuri expresses her gratitude to Minami for the skiing tip and says sorry for being distant before. This makes Minami really happy. As the school day wraps up and they head back home on the bus, Minami reflects on how great the day was because she got to ski and finally made friends with Sayuri. The only small letdown for her was hoping for a lively chat on the bus ride back, but instead, they all just fell asleep. The next day, Tsubasa wonders if he can face another day of class while feeling nervous and sore from skiing the day before. Tsubasa's grandmother advises him that determination is needed to become a true Hokkaido inhabitant. The grandmother eagerly prepares to send Tsubasa to school, and he assures her that he will do his best. However, even before reaching school, Tsubasa starts catching a cold and despairs in the cold weather, finding it torturous. Unexpectedly, he is hit by a car and loses hope. Despite this, he believes Fayuki could face the snowstorm and go to school normally, even on turbulent days. Thinking more about her, he starts saying his goodbyes to Fayuki and life as the cold almost overwhelms him. Suddenly, Fayuki emerges from a car in front of him, warning him not to walk around in the snowstorm. She instructs him to get into the car so they can go to school together. Although he hesitates and questions if this is how life will be from now on, Fayuki pushes him into the car. He apologizes for bothering her, and Fayuki's mother acknowledges the cold weather, suggesting that Tsubasa relax and be comfortable. When Tsubasa sees Fayuki's mother for the first time, he notices that she is also a Jaru. Tsubasa realizes a significant physical similarity between Fayuki and her mother. Fayuki playfully teases him, suggesting that because he is a rich boy, their car may be a bit tight for him. Seeing them talk so much about him, Tsubasa feels nervous. Fayuki's mother then asks if Tsubasa is the rich boy Fayuki often mentions, further increasing his unease. To the question of having a girlfriend in his homeland, Tsubasa uses his muscle pain as an excuse, claiming he worked too hard in the skiing class. Fayuki, aware of his condition, advises him not to abuse his muscles too much. Sensing a suspicious tone in Fayuki's response, her mother comments on Fayuki being more resistant to the cold. As her mother continues with teasing remarks, Tsubasa eventually gives in and answers that he doesn't have a girlfriend in Tokyo. Fayuki's mother, in a playful manner, suggests offering her daughter to Tsubasa, leading Fayuki to request her mother to stop embarrassing him in front of Tsubasa. Despite Fayuki's request, her mother continues to praise Tsubasa, suggesting they would make a lovely couple. Fayuki gives her an angry look, causing her mother to relax and mention that she was just excited to meet him. Tsubasa notes that Fayuki gets angry in that way, but it doesn't scare him. Nevertheless, he should still be careful. Changing the subject, Fayuki's mother talks about how Tsubasa, being from Tokyo, must find the local weather surprising. Tsubasa agrees and wonders why the school hasn't closed. Fayuki explains that locals are accustomed to the cold, and her mother adds that many children go to school with their parents, especially in winter. Fayuki mentions her desire to look cute and wear less clothing, but the winter cold prevents her from doing so. They discuss the high cost of winter clothing, and Fayuki, unable to afford what she likes with her allowance, expresses her desire to work. However, her mother and father advise her that she's still too young. Observing them, Tsubasa thinks they look like a close-knit family, imagining the challenges of being a local in Hokkaido. Unintentionally, he praises them for looking cute in their current attire, shocking both Fayuki and her mother, who blush in embarrassment. Tsubasa apologizes for his inadvertent comment. Later, they arrive at the school entrance, and Fayuki's mother asks Tsubasa if their houses are close. He replies that they're about a 10-minute walk away. She suggests that if he sees a blizzard like today, he should contact Fayuki, and she could give him a ride. After thanking her, Fayuki's mother compliments Tsubasa on his handling of the situation. Fayuki, still embarrassed, replies that he only did a little well. As they enter the school, Fayuki's mother reflects on how even in winter, with a blizzard, it still feels like spring for others. In the hallway, Tsubasa continues to endure the pain and notices Sayuri approaching. Fayuki rushes to hug her, despite Sayuri being in pain herself. Tsubasa realizes that Sayuri also has muscle soreness, indicating that he's in the same situation. In the classroom, Fayuki notices Tsubasa wearing the cardigan and blanket she lent him. She asks him what he thinks about it, revealing her jacket and showing off her plot warmer, wondering if he wears any. Tsubasa is taken by surprise, avoiding eye contact, and replies that he doesn't. He now understands why Fayuki can wear light clothes. She hands him a pair of plot warmers, emphasizing how serious the cold in Hokkaido can be. When Tsubasa holds the plot warmers, he reflects on the unexpected friendship with Fayuki, something he couldn't have imagined in Tokyo. Fayuki suggests he should buy a lipstick, to which Tsubasa advises her to do it after class using the Hokkaido dialect. Surprising Fayuki as she realizes he is already picking up the local way of speaking. She expresses joy, confirming that he's becoming a local like them. Sayuri joins them, telling Tsubasa not to take Fayuki as a role model, mentioning Fayuki's exceptional qualities. Fayuki, curious, asks Sayuri what she's talking about. Sayuri responds that she's also 100% laid back but doesn't use many regional idioms, nor does she have an accent. She admits she's not good at skiing or winter sports, but there are many like her. Tsubasa realizes that Fayuki's family from Sapporo uses Hokkaido idioms, while most of Sayuri's family doesn't, except for her grandparents. Tsubasa thinks this probably depends on location, family, and age. He notices the handheld console in Sayuri's hands, and she excitedly suggests playing together. Tsubasa eagerly agrees, loudly expressing his desire to play with her, embarrassing Sayuri. She turns away, quietly commenting that he's too innocent, though Tsubasa remains oblivious. He invites Fayuki to join them, and she gladly agrees. The three of them make plans to meet at Tabu after class. Later, they find themselves in front of Tabu, a shopping center. They show Tsubasa around the fashion and dining sections, as well as a mini supermarket with a variety of meat. Tsubasa is surprised by the size of the place, noting that it doesn't look like a typical shopping center, with more space and less noise, allowing for a calmer atmosphere. The trio encourages Fayuki, as she plays a game on the console, and after securing a victory, she celebrates with Sayuri. When Tsubasa heads to the bathroom, Fayuki asks Sayuri if she wants to check out cosmetics, affectionately calling her Sayurin. Sayurin, embarrassed by the nickname, eventually agrees to accompany Fayuki to see the cosmetics section. Talking about the expensive cost of colored contact lenses, Sayurin suggests they could buy them together. After discussing it, Sayurin tells Fayuki that she's a very pleasant girl, and apologizes for being so serious with her in high school. Fayuki is surprised by this admission, and can't help but feel embarrassed. She clarifies that it never bothered her. Tsubasa rejoins them, and they continue with various activities throughout the day, enjoying their time together. After finishing their shopping, Fayuki mentions buying the shampoo Tsubasa recommended, while Sayuri purchased the contact lenses he approved of. Tsubasa realizes it's getting late, and suggests they should leave. However, Fayuki takes the opportunity to enter a photo booth, capturing a moment between the three of them. As night falls, Tsubasa wonders if they have to submit their English assignment the next day. Deciding to ask Fayuki, he checks the back of his phone, enjoying the photo they took. Just as he is about to message her, he receives a response from Fayuki, informing him that she's in the bathroom. Before he can reply, she sends him a photo from the bathtub, innocently showing her toy and not revealing anything explicit. Tsubasa responds by commenting on the durability of her toy and apologizing for any inconvenience. Fayuki, finding the situation not as amusing as she expected, decides to spice things up with a more provocative photo, sending a top camera angle photo, leaving Tsubasa in shock. She thinks she may have gone too far but anticipates a better reaction. Within moments, Tsubasa responds with another message. Tsubasa responds to Fayuki, teasing her about taking her beauty routine seriously, and mentioning that her effort in that photo reveals her big mommy airbags. Meanwhile, Tsubasa is frustrated, wondering if his response was the right one to Fayuki's previous photo. He hears the phone ring, Fayuki. Contemplating whether to answer or not, he decides to pick up, realizing that ignoring her, his initial rational option, is no longer viable. Fayuki asks if he's watching her, making Tsubasa look at his phone, only to discover that she has initiated a video call. Nervous, he notices his camera isn't even on, meaning she can't see him. Fayuki laughs, having successfully embarrassed him. Tsubasa turns the phone upside down to speak more comfortably. Fayuki casually asks if he bathes daily, to which he answers yes. She reveals that in her house, apart from her and her mother, they usually bathe every 2 days due to concerns about rising bills. She suggests going to hot springs, mentioning they could bathe together and rub soaps on each other. Tsubasa realizes she's just teasing him. Remembering the English assignment, he asks Fayuki about it, and she realizes she hasn't done anything. Shocked, she loses balance, dropping her phone. Tsubasa also fumbles with his phone, accidentally pointing the camera towards Fayuki's shining body as they catch their devices. Fayuki asks if he saw everything, but Tsubasa claims he saw nothing, as he was focused on catching his falling phone. Embarrassed, Fayuki hastily ends the call, and as she gets out of the bath, she reflects on the situation, acknowledging that she may have crossed the line with the unexpected video call. The next day, Fayuki fails to submit the assignment on time, and the teacher scolds her severely for it. Sometime later, Minami goes to a karaoke place with a group of school friends, where she has a great time singing her favorite song. Sayuri and Tsubasa go along with her, and are impressed by Minami's singing skills. Two other friends notice that Minami always chooses the same song whenever they go to karaoke, and she explains that it's her favorite because it cheers her up. Tsubasa listens to their conversation, and Sayuri asks if he's used to going to karaoke. He admits that he doesn't go often but has been a few times with his family. Then Tsubasa turns the question to Sayuri, who awkwardly confesses that she usually goes to karaoke alone. Tsubasa tries to reassure her, but his efforts unintentionally make her feel lonelier. When it's time for them to sing, Tsubasa and Sayuri feel uncomfortable going alone, so their classmates help them choose a song. Minami notices their discomfort and selects a song for all three of them to sing together, which helps them relax. After enjoying karaoke, the group grabs a snack and chats. One of them, named Matsun, suggests forming a study group to prepare for the upcoming final exams. Meanwhile, Sayuri strikes up a conversation with another girl who compliments her nails. At that moment, Minami's phone reminds her that Valentine's Day is coming up. She shares the date with the group, and everyone gets excited, discussing who will give gifts and chocolates. This prompts Tsubasa to wonder if Minami will give someone a gift, and Matsun jokingly asks her for chocolate on Valentine's Day. Minami agrees casually, mentioning that she plans to make a lot of chocolates this year, recalling how she made 60 sweets for her friends last year, which someone remarks was like a school lunch distribution. Tsubasa realizes that Minami won't be giving romantic gifts, but distributing sweets to classmates. Feeling oddly relieved by this, Sayuri notices Tsubasa's reaction when another girl asks if she plans to make chocolate for someone. She replies that she prefers to save money for her hobbies, which everyone finds typical of her. Then one of the guys asks Tsubasa if he used to receive gifts from girls when he lived in Tokyo. Tsubasa responds that he only received gifts from family, and the others share similar experiences. After the gathering, everyone says goodbye and heads home. Tsubasa feels happy about the karaoke outing and reflects on the fun day when Minami and Sayuri call him at the same time. Minami asks if they both had fun, and they agree, which makes the girl happy for inviting them and says she'll invite them next time the group meets. Then Tsubasa asks what Sayuri was going to say, but she says it's nothing important and doesn't tell him. So the three walk together to leave while Minami comments that Tsubasa sings well. Sayuri leaves them talking and ends up falling behind to check her phone, which shows 100 questions to ask someone to find out what kind of chocolate they like. Then Minami calls her, and the three continue on their way together. The next day, Sayuri plays a video game, making an effort to forget the idea of making chocolate. However, the girl can't ignore her desire, so she goes to a store that sells various options for gifting chocolate on Valentine's Day. There she ends up finding Minami, who went there to buy the ingredients needed to prepare the sweets she will distribute to her classmates. Minami asks if Sayuri is buying something, and the girl invents that she went there to buy nail polish, but since her nails were already done, she invents again that she intends to buy cosmetics. Then Minami decides to join Sayuri, and after they finish shopping, she takes the opportunity to ask what kind of chocolate her friend likes. Sayuri explains her taste, and they start talking about the types of chocolate. This reminds Minami that she still has to buy the ingredients to prepare the sweets. So Minami says goodbye to Sayuri, but before leaving, Sayuri asks if they could shop together, explaining that she wants to make chocolates to give to her, which gets Minami very excited. After the purchase, the girl tells Sayuri that if she has any difficulty preparing the chocolate, she could call for help. Next, Minami starts to leave when Sayuri asks if she plans to give Tsubasa a special gift on Valentine's Day. Minami is confused by the question after all. She is just a friend of his, just like Sayuri herself. However, Sayuri says that she only plays with Tsubasa while Minami and he have a closer bond. Later, Sayuri apologizes for asking something like that. Then they say goodbye and leave feeling awkward. At night, Tsubasa reviews all the material that will be on the test, trying to concentrate on study and ignore the fact that the next day will be Valentine's Day. Meanwhile, at Sayuri's house, she gets ready to make chocolates when she sees Minami's messages thanking them for shopping together. At that moment, Minami realizes that the girl was still awake and sends a message asking if she managed to prepare the sweets. Sayuri explains that she always stays up late because she likes to play and is about to start making the chocolate. Then Minami decides to call her friend for the first time, and Sayuri takes the opportunity to ask for a simple recipe. And so Minami gives step-by-step instructions on how to prepare sweets easily. Sayuri starts by chopping a chocolate bar into small pieces at an absurd speed, a skill she acquired from being used to playing. Then she mixes it with cream, heats everything in a pan until the chocolate melts, and pours it into a tray to cool in the refrigerator. After everything is ready, Sayuri comments that it was indeed super easy to prepare, only lacking to chop the chocolate to the desired size. Then the girl asks how Minami's sweets turned out, and her friend decides to keep it a secret, saying she will have to wait until the next day to find out. But then, she comments that she is excited about the result of the 70 sweets she prepared to distribute at school, setting a new record for her. Sayuri is surprised by the number of chocolates, as well as the number of friends Minami has to be able to distribute all that. And she explains that she always gets excited thinking about their reactions when they are given presents. Despite all the work in the end, she feels like she's the one having the most fun. So, Minami asks if Sayuri made her chocolate thinking of someone special. The girl explains again that she was making the sweets for her friend, but Minami asks if there wasn't anyone else she wanted to give a gift to on Valentine's Day, leaving Sayuri embarrassed. Minami starts to say that she's been wondering for a while if Sayuri doesn't like Tsubasa. But before she can finish, she accidentally bumps into a milk cart, causing a bunch of kitchen stuff to fall. This leads a bottle of soy sauce to spill on all 70 chocolates, leaving not a single one for her to distribute the next day. Minami is devastated to see that all her work has gone to waste, and Sayuri doesn't know what to say to cheer up her friend. But Minami quickly pretends she's okay and comments that it's her fault for not putting everything away after finishing making the chocolate. Then, after asking if Sayuri still remembers all the instructions she received, she says she needs to go clean up and hangs up the call. Next, the girl wishes Sayuri good luck, who thinks it's very kind of her considering what she just went through. Minami is devastated to see that all her work has gone to waste, and Sayuri doesn't know what to say to cheer up her friend. But Minami quickly pretends she's okay and comments that it's her fault for not putting everything away after finishing making the chocolate. Then, after asking if Sayuri still remembers all the instructions she received, she says she needs to go clean up and hangs up the call. Next, the girl wishes Sayuri good luck, who thinks it's very kind of her considering what she just went through. The next day, Tsubasa, who is very tired from studying all night and not sleeping at all, goes to check his school locker, only to find out that this time also he didn't receive any Valentine's Day presents. But as soon as he gets to the classroom, Minami greets him and gives him a chocolate she bought for him, making him very happy. However, he notices that Minami's eyes are slightly red and wonders why. Then Sayuri shows up and Minami gives her a chocolate too. Afterward, the girl goes to the rest of the class to continue distributing the sweets. Matsun, instead of thanking her for the gift, asks why this year the chocolate was bought instead of being homemade as usual, making it clear that he was disappointed. Minami acts calmly and says that this year's production was suspended due to some unforeseen circumstances and keeps smiling despite everything. Tsubasa and Sayuri overhear the conversation and he wonders why she couldn't prepare the chocolates as she wanted. Later, Matsun leaves to receive other sweets. Sayuri goes after him and warns him that if he speaks like that again to Minami, she'll beat him up, leaving the guy terrified. Then everyone is given free time to study for the final exams and Tsubasa continues to worry about Minami. After classes, the teacher announces that the school clubs will take a break because of the exams and that everyone should go home after finishing the day's cleaning. And so later, when everyone finishes cleaning, the students start to leave, leaving Minami and Tsubasa alone in the music room. He comments that normally when classes end, you can hear the school band rehearsing, but at that moment, the school was so silent that it seemed like there were only the two of them in it. Then Tsubasa takes advantage of the fact that they were alone to thank her again for the chocolate. However, this makes the girl break down. She starts crying and Tsubasa gets worried, not understanding what had happened. At that moment, Sayuri passes by the hallway and observes the two of them hidden. Minami tells Tsubasa what happened to her chocolates, explaining that some of them could have been saved because they were just cracked or had a little milk on them, but she didn't want to give her friends spoiled chocolate. Minami explains that she felt like she had disappointed everyone and regrets not listening to her mom, who told her to put everything away after she finished cooking. Tsubasa is at a loss for words to cheer up the girl. So, he walks over to the school piano and begins to play a tune completely absorbed in the melody. When he finishes playing, Minami is moved because that's the song she sang at karaoke. Tsubasa explains that Minami always lifts his spirits, and she mentioned on karaoke day that this particular song never fails to cheer her up. That's why he decided to try learning the melody by ear, having studied piano, so he could uplift her at least once. This leaves the girl overjoyed. Taking advantage of her friend's improved mood, Sayuri shows up in the room to deliver the chocolates she made for Valentine's Day. Both Minami and Tsubasa think Sayuri made the sweets for him, as the girl starts to leave intending to leave the two alone. Sayuri reveals that she made the chocolate for Minami, remembering her promise to give friendship gifts. Minami is delighted with the sweet treat she receives, while Tsubasa feels extremely embarrassed for assuming it was for him, wishing he could dig a hole to hide in. However, so Sayuri then hands him a chocolate. She explains that when she made the sweets for Minami, there was a little left over and Tsubasa expresses gratitude for the gift. Then she comments on his piano skills. Next, Manami tries one of the chocolates and is impressed by the flavor, and so the three decide to enjoy the gifts together, combining Sayuri's and Manami's sweets, celebrating Valentine's Day as friends. The next day, the teacher says next week will be finals week, and they need to study hard until then. The class groans, but the teacher says they can complain as much as they want and then lets them go. In the back of the room, Tsubasa realizes he's already reviewed all the exam material, so he just needs to go over a few things he struggles with. Beside him, Fayuki is upset about the upcoming finals because she really doesn't like this time of evaluation. But she notices Tsubasa isn't too bothered by it, so she asks if he actually enjoys exams. He admits he doesn't, but he knows that putting effort into reaching a goal is important, which motivates him to study. Fayuki is surprised by his perspective, and Tsubasa worries she might think he's too nerdy. But she likes his attitude and feels motivated by his words. Taking the chance, Fayuki asks if Tsubasa is free later because she wants to study with him at her place. He happily agrees this time without hesitation. Next, Sayuri, with her usual mood, questions why she has to tag along with them. With her typical energy, Fayuki responds enthusiastically that the more, the merrier. Sayuri notices her friend's tone and asks if she's actually intending to study, to which Fayuki explains she's feeling focused for it. Plus, she has a really smart private tutor to steer the ship. Tsubasa finds it amusing to be called a private tutor, but deep down, he's there because he believes that teaching others is also a way for him to learn. Soon, they arrive at Fayuki's house, where she mentions her parents are at work and her sister is at dance class, meaning they have the place to themselves for now. Sayuri is surprised that her friend has a sister, and even though Fayuki explains that her younger sister is tiny, Sayuri could swear she would be the younger sister. Then, the hostess instructs the others to wait in her room while she fetches some drinks. Sayuri asks where this room is, and Fayuki informs her it's at the back of the second floor. On the way to the stairs, Sayuri complains that she couldn't have guessed where Fayuki's room is since they've never been there before, but Tsubasa mentions he's been there recently. Upon hearing this, Sayuri can't hide her reaction. So the boy explains they only watched a movie in the living room and didn't enter her room. Hearing the explanation, Sayuri calls the boy a sneaky perv, to which Tsubasa insists nothing happened, as Fayuki even fell asleep during the movie. With that, the gentle goth lets the matter drop, and the two of them reach the room. Both of them are struck by the fact that the room perfectly reflects Fayuki's personality, and Tsubasa realizes it's his first time entering a girl's room. And it smells wonderful, as the owner likely spends the whole day there on her phone, sleeping, or changing clothes. With that last observation, the boy scolds his own poisoned mind, and Sayuri catches on to what he's thinking, upgrading her insult against him to shameless perv. At that moment, Fayuki arrives with a soda called Ribbon Napalm, and Tsubasa seems eager to try it. Upon tasting it, he loves the drink, and Fayuki explains that Ribbon is like Hokkaido's soul, while Sayuri claims the fizz cleared her mind, leading Tsubasa to believe this soda might be an interesting trick to boost their study performance. After that, Fayuki suggests they ask each other questions, and Tsubasa suggests starting with world history. To start with an easy one, he asks what the name of the religious theory created by Calvin, where each individual's fate has already been decided by God and therefore cannot be changed. On the second try, Sayuri correctly guesses it's the theory of predestination, and Fayuki feels like she might fall behind, so she makes some empty comments on the topic to not be left out. Next, she asks Sayuri to ask the second question, and she asks how the law in England, where Princess Tudor imposed that the Anglican Church should be worshipped by all, became known, and Tsubasa immediately responds that it's the act of uniformity. Finally, Fayuki must present her question. And, embarrassed, she takes a sip of soda and mentions that in the past, Kitami produced 70% of the world's mint. The friends are impressed with the information, and Sayuri realizes why her grandmother always has mint candy. Then, Fayuki says her father told her this recently, and that it's really crazy to think about. And Sayuri responds that it might be, but it has nothing to do with the test, and it wasn't even a question. Fayuki feels embarrassed, but Tsubasa reassures her that everything will be fine if she really puts in the effort. With that, Sayuri says the boy gives Fayuki too much leeway. Hours pass in the friends' study until the sun sets while Tsubasa's grandmother is preparing a chicken dish made with tatsuda. Returning to the students, Fayuki's head is fried from going over so much material. So Tsubasa checks the clock and realizes it's past time for him to head home. So he gathers his things and bolts out of there in the blink of an eye, leaving the girls high and dry. He rushes towards the door to open it, but Fayuki's mother beats him to it, and Tsubasa is left staring at her in a rather inappropriate manner. Taking advantage of the fact that the boy was already leaving, she offers him a ride, and he still feels the sweet smell and a gentle sensation on his face as Fayuki's mother drives. She mentions that she heard from her daughter that the boy plays the piano very well, and he explains that he's been practicing since he was a child. Taking the opportunity, the woman mentions that Fayuki was sad because some things happened on Valentine's Day, so she was worried about how the girl would be when she got home. But Fayuki was happy and talking about how talented Tsubasa is with music. Tsubasa's face flushes with embarrassment, and the woman thanks him sincerely for what he's been doing for her daughter. Soon, they arrive at the boy's house, and Fayuki's mother notices that it really looks like a castle. Tsubasa avoids the topic and says his goodbyes, but before he leaves, she gives the boy a guarana as a reward for what he has been doing. However, as soon as the woman leaves, the boy's grandmother appears with a demonic aura and knocks all the snow off the roof, asking if it's the right time to come home. The next morning, Tsubasa's grandmother asks him to take out the trash before he goes to school. On his way to school, Tsubasa still feels bad about the scolding he got from his grandmother yesterday. She reminded him that as long as he lives under her roof, she's in charge. Tsubasa knows he made a mistake, and he's humble about it. The grandmother lets it go this time, but Tsubasa knows there will be consequences if it happens again. Then, he sees a beautiful girl with pink hair near the garbage dump. She scares away some crows with a piece of wood and tells Tsubasa it's safe to throw away the trash now. At school, Fayuki thinks the pink-haired girl might be Rina, who's won 2 beauty contests. Fayuki admires Rina's beauty a lot and dreams of being as beautiful as her someday. Tsubasa agrees that Rina is beautiful in a different way. Later, Fayuki invites Tsubasa to study at her house again, but he says he wants to study alone until the exams. Fayuki understands but feels sad. Tsubasa doesn't want to admit that he got scolded by his grandmother and is afraid of making more mistakes. So, Fayuki decides to invite only Sayuri to study, but she declines because they haven't studied together since Tsubasa left yesterday. During a break, Fayuki invites Sayuri to have lunch together, but Sayuri says she's focused on passing a difficult level in a game and can't leave. So Fayuki decides to stay there too, as long as she doesn't disturb Sayuri's game. Sayuri asked why Fayuki was upset, and she explained that eating alone wasn't good. Sayuri thought Fayuki was mad because she didn't want to study together, but Fayuki said she wasn't upset about small things. She seemed bothered because Tsubasa left without talking to anyone, but Sayuri said Tsubasa must have had his reason. Fayuki joked that Sayuri was acting like an old lady, and Sayuri didn't think it was a compliment. Tsubasa went straight to the library to study peacefully. He heard someone snoring and saw the pink-haired girl sleeping there. He thought she looked like an angel and wondered what kind of dream she could have with such a sweet face. He hoped the library would be a good place to study, but then the girl woke up and started talking about an ancient battle, which surprised Tsubasa. The girl, Rina, said she was part of the library committee and had the authority to sleep there if she wanted. Tsubasa wasn't bothered, but Rina was more interested in how he could sit so straight. She corrected one of Tsubasa's answers and impressed him with her reasoning. Later, when Tsubasa got home, his grandmother was waiting to celebrate a ceremony because she thought he had been slacking off. Then, Rina showed up at the door to deliver the neighborhood newsletter, revealing that she and Tsubasa were neighbors. Rina notices that Tsubasa is wearing a traditional Japanese outfit and finds it fascinating. When Tsubasa's grandmother comes to see why he's late, she sees Rina hugging him at the door. The grandmother is upset by this during the ceremony, but Rina explains that she tripped and Tsubasa helped her, calming the grandmother down. After Rina leaves, the grandmother compliments her beauty, which she doesn't usually do. Then, the grandmother returns to the ceremony, but Tsubasa is still distracted by Rina's departure. She scolds him again, saying he needs to be more careful and demanding that he be among the top 10 students on the next test, or else he'll have to go back to Tokyo. This brings an end to our episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button to support this video. See you then.